Hey everybody, I'm Tommy and you were on the boat. What's happening? Look at that, right out the gate. Thank you, Will. Appreciate you, man. Glad that you are killing it, man. Will is doing fantastic. If you haven't hit subscribe, please do. He does some really cool content and he's stepping it up. It's that time of year. Jane Aldrich, how are you? DS Kitty Diane, Renee B, good to see you. Krista Melinda, what's happening? Going to be lurking. That's okay. I don't mind a good lurker. Renee B, I'm happy you're here and right on time. Hello, Shannon. I'm glad that you are here. Truly glad that you are here. So, people, when I started doing content about Diddy, I said, I'm going to cover this because this story is going to take off. This is going to be one of those stories that I promise you we're going to be talking about for a hot minute. And I mean, you didn't have to be Nostradamus. Hello, Kathy. It wasn't one of those things that should have been a shocker to anybody because the story just screamed. This goes a lot deeper than what you're looking at. Rocket Queen. Oh yeah. Jamie Palmer. How are you? This one, I feel the exact same way about. This is a story that we are going to be talking about. The Jared Leto story hasn't even started. I promise you. Wendy, good to have you here. I'm glad you're here. Truly, I am. This one's creepier than just about anything that I've covered. And when I started to deep dive it, I started to deep dive this because somebody in one of the chats a while back said, you should really look into Jared Leto. So I began to do that. And then there was a article that came out in Airmail where they started to talk a little bit more in depth about who this cat is. And that got me looking. Cinnamon Girl, glad you're here. And that got me looking a little bit deeper. And I want to tell you something. This cat is one of the creepiest dudes that Hollywood has ever cranked out. Now, I'm going to cover this a little bit different than I did back in the early days of Diddy. I will go on right now on the record of saying that Jared Leto has denied every single allegation that's made against him. And there are plenty. So this is going to be an allegedly. He started out on a show called My So-Called Life, Wendy. And that is one of those shows. Does anybody put a deuce in the chat if you remember My So-Called Life? If this is, if you're of that generation and you remember this television show. Claire Danes also got her start in this. She was 14 years old at the time when that film came out. Claire Danes did a interview on the Howard Stern show, and they brought up Jared Leto, and she said he was very paternal. Well, you can't do better than being very paternal, right? She also did say, though, first time I ever went to a club, Jared Leto took me there. He was in his 20s. I was 14. If you take a 14-year-old girl to a club, that's not maternal. That's not paternal, I should say. You're not being a dad if you take a 14-year-old to a club. But I didn't watch it either. I'm not familiar with it by that time. I was knee deep in other things and didn't much care about television. But a guy in his 20s taking a 14-year-old girl to a club is creepy. Sorry, I'll stand on that. But it is just scratching the surface of the kind of creepy that this guy is capable of. He is an actor that has a gazillion movies to his credit. He's been in a bunch of them. Some did very, very well. The show that they did about the early days of HIV and AIDS and how difficult it was to get the drugs back then. He played a trans woman, and he believes in the method acting type of getting into a character. And very often you'll hear people talk about method acting, and it's very much misunderstood. But it usually means that, yeah, Dallas Buyers Club was the name of it. Thank you again, Will. I appreciate you. It helps keep this going. It really does. The Dallas Buyers Club, and he was fantastic in it. He insisted that he only be called by the character's name. This is very common among method actors. He also tends to go a little bit deeper in his method acting. If you are a actor and they give you a role, regardless of the size of it, you could have 2 lines in the movie. But they say, you're playing teenager number 3. A method actor will write a history of that teenager. What was his life like? Where was he born? What was his parents like? What the first time he got laid? All of these kind of things become part of the character. You really get into becoming that character. He did a film called Requiem for a Dream. I tend to get a little angry about this film because it is often called one of the best movies about heroin and drug use in general ever made. It is not. I promise you it is not. There are some things about that movie that drive me nuts. For instance, every time his character shoots heroin, they focus in on his eyes and they show his pupils get massive, which is the exact opposite is what would happen. You figure that the director could do a little bit of research, but Jared Leto really got into the character. He did this by not showering for 3 weeks because, well, I'm sure that everyone that does drugs doesn't shower for 3 weeks. He also started to wander around New York pretending to be homeless. Now, it's a dark film. It's depressing as hell. There's a girl trading sexual favors for cocaine. There's just some really dark stuff in there. He ends up having an amputation because of his drug use. It's a dark film. I think the guy digs dark films. And he ended up sort of getting propelled with those two films into an echelon in Hollywood that lets you kind of pick and choose the kind of stuff you're going to do. And it gets you roles that you may not have gotten before. He got cast in The Suicide Squad. Now, YouTube, that's the name of a film. I said it in the first 6 minutes. Don't demonetize it. That's the name of a film. But he played the Joker. Now, we know that the Joker has been a character that's been played by everybody, right? And Heath Ledger's Joker really got famous, and they said that it may have led to his death because he really got into the character and he started to spiral sort of out of control. But this was going to be the remaking of the Joker, and they really kind of they laid it out that way. In spite of the fact that he made this film completely about him, he's on film for about 9 minutes because they had to cut most of his scenes out. By almost everybody's standards, he sucked in that film, right? But boy, did he get into the character. And let me tell you some of the stuff that he did in his method acting, right? He did a terrible version of the Joker, in my opinion. Yours and everybody else on planet Earth. He was panned by everyone. He was crapped on for how bad he did the Joker. But let me tell you how he got into character. Method acting. Now keep in mind, you're not the freaking Joker. I mean, yes, maybe you want to get into the darkness of it. Maybe you want to write a whole history for him. That kind of makes sense. Carolina, Canada, glad you're here. How about, though, if you decided to start sending gifts to everybody on the cast? And he has denied this, by the way. So if you say, oh, he said that was just a joke, right? Maybe that wasn't real. He said he was joking. These rumors came out of his mouth originally. Now you can backpedal afterwards, but he said this in an interview on a red carpet. What he did was he sent gifts to the actors, gifts like Playboy magazines that had the pages stuck together with semen. Classy. He sent a dead rat to a couple of different actors and actresses on the set. He sent a dead pig, had it delivered in person to the dressing room of some of these people. Now, that's creepy. He also sent them used condoms. Try doing that if you're not an actor and see what happens to you. If you're just a regular run-of-the-mill person walking around and you send used condoms, a dead pig, or anal beads, and if you don't know what that is, maybe Google it after the show. But these are the gifts that he sent to people because he said, well, that's what the Joker would have done. Okay, well, that's just downright creepy, right? And it terrorized the people on this set. Margot Robbie, when they interview about her, goes, oh, yeah, he sent some really odd gifts. Everyone that they talked to said, yeah, he sent some really odd stuff. He was, I guess, trying to get into character. That's creepy, people. That's creepy. Spun out and decided he wanted to be a rock star and started a band with his brother. Never heard of the band. I'm sorry, I'm an old man. Right? I'm a Grateful Dead, Jimi Hendrix, that kind of thing. I like the stuff from the 80s. 30 Seconds to Mars is the name of his band. And toured the world fairly successfully with this. But he spun out some things that most rock stars don't do. Like, you want to pay $6,000? You can come spend 3 days with me. That's a frightening concept for a rock star, period. But he did it on some place that they called Mars Island. They sold T-shirts that said, yes, this is a cult. He walked around in long, flowing white robes where he had grown a very Jesus-like beard and appearance, and bragged about the fact that this was a cult. And if you went to Mars Island, there were certain things that you could do there, one of which was get a tattoo of the band for free. many of the people who did this were of questionable age. Many of the people that went to this island were of questionable age. And these stories about him being very fond of young women have been around for a really long time. And it makes you wonder, how in hell does this guy not get canceled, right? And I started looking this up. I started doing research, and a lot of people said, well, this is white privilege. Had he been Diddy with all of these accusations? Well, we just did a show on Kevin Spacey, who is most assuredly white, and white privilege has not helped him out much. And Harvey Weinstein is incarcerated and will die in prison. Didn't help him out much. So what's going on with Jared Leto that he just doesn't get canceled? He's literally not capable. There was a model named Laura LaRue. She alleged that he started flirting with her at age 16 in 2008 and whipped out his junk to show her when she was 17. That's a prison sentence if you're not in Hollywood, right? That's going to get you locked up. That's just downright creepy. Ali Talese, she is a DJ Ali Talese. She alleged assault backstage in 2012 at the age of 17, described it as predatory. Other anonymous claims involve a 16-year-old in 2006 receiving explicit calls, exposure, and masturbation in front of her. Walking naked in front of a 17-year-old, sexual remarks to teens, grooming and broader rumors of rape, coercion, and cult-like fan retreat on his Mars Island. He's denied all of this, right? But this resurfaced just recently in 2025, and there are 9 women now that are accusing him. Some have come out live with it, and some have not. They're doing it anonymously. He has not been charged with this stuff as yet, but very often these allegations don't start with criminal, no, they don't start with being prosecuted. They start with people who start to sue or people who start to talk about this. But the article that was written about him is pretty nasty. His last 5 films, by the way, have been flops. If a film costs $100 million to make, how much money do you think it has to generate in order to be profitable? Because if you thought to yourself, well, $100 million and $1 would do it, to film a film for $100 million means that you're going to have to make 2 to 3 times that much money in order for it to be profitable, because they drop a fortune to advertise these films, right? None of his films have been profitable. In fact, most have lost a fortune. Now, all of these allegations are out there. Nobody wants to touch him, right? His career is looking really nasty. Step in somebody in Hollywood that you would assume, an agency in Hollywood, a group in Hollywood, a production company, that you would assume might want to protect people, especially those under the age of, say, 18. Disney decides to cast him in a film. Wasn't the Gucci film good? Let's look it up, because that's probably the only one that was even in the ballpark. But let's see where we're at. For instance, Tron Ares had a budget of $180 million. It grossed $142. That's a bomb. Haunted Mansion, also Disney, right? $150 million, grossed $117. Major flop. Morbius, a budget of $75 million, grossed $162 million, minor profit, but a meme level failure. They literally put that thing in theaters twice in 1 year. Both times it flopped and they had to pull it out of theaters. House of Gucci had a budget of $75 million and grossed $147 million, did okay, but it didn't fully recover costs. Even at $147 million with a $75 million budget, that does not recoup how much you got into it. Now, I gave sort of those in back order because Tron had a budget of $180 million. This is his most recent film, and grossed $142. They lost their ass on Tron. How do you make a movie remake of Tron that isn't successful? That's Tron, right? People my age are going to go see it because they saw the first one and probably the second one, right? This is a guy that doesn't seem to have anything stick to him. So as I started to do research on this, the number of accusations that I can't bring forward because of places where they have been. Jeff Bridges was in the first one, and he did make a reappearance in one of the other ones, but he was the original in the original Tron. Saw 30 Seconds to Mars in Lincoln Park in Cali about 5 years ago. My girlfriend has the tat. Pretty wild, says Lee. Yeah. Well, a lot of people got tats, right? A lot of people got tattoos. This band has a cult-like following. So I started to watch some of the shows because I don't know anything about him. And he's standing on stage getting ready to open a show. And it kind of looked like it might have been, it kind of looked like a European venue, right? It's this, it almost looked like, it definitely didn't look like anything in the United States. Very theater-like. It had 4 tiers. It had like boxes. And it looked like someplace that you might put on an opera more than it looked like someplace you'd put on a rock show. But he comes out and starts talking to the audience, as most rock stars do. And he says, you in the back with your fingers in your effing chin beard, why are you still sitting? Kind of disturbing, but it goes on for about 3 minutes. Yeah, I'm talking to you. No, I'm pointing at you. Don't look behind you. I'm pointing at you. You're at a 30 Seconds to Effin' Mars concert. Get on your effing feet. I'm watching this going, what the deuce? Like, I've seen 150 rock concerts, man. I've never seen somebody berate someone before the show starts, right? The allegations from women who say that they were backstage and were asked to do things that were foul, I could find hundreds of them. The problem is these people haven't made public allegations. By full disclosure, these end up on things like subreddits, and they end up on platforms, not Reddit, but platforms like that where people can go and talk about artists. Now, that doesn't mean they're not real, but it means that they certainly haven't been vetted out in the same way. Jeff Bridges made the first one. In my opinion, sequels don't do well without the actor who pretty much made the original movie. I tend to agree with that. There are exceptions to that rule. In fact, Jared Leto happened to be one of them. The reboot of the film Blade Runner, Leto makes a brief appearance in that film as well. And I think there may have been a cameo by Harrison Ford, but he didn't spend much time in the film, if I remember correctly. But that movie did okay. Didn't do fantastic, but it did okay. And there have been some reboots over the years. They're about to make a movie about how the Rocky Balboa film was originally made. And the guy that's playing Rocky could be Rocky. It's one of the creepiest things. I was watching some clips of that, but really, really odd. But back to Leto here briefly. So this cat has been doing this and has dodged every single bullet that's been sent at him, right? The stuff that's come out about Mars Island would end anybody's career. Letting people pay you $6,000 or pay you $650 or whatever, but to go to an island for days where you do meditations with this guy, there are a myriad of women who said that not only did they sleep with him underage, but that he was forceful, he was violent, he left marks, he's super into BDSM apparently, and I'll tell you what, I don't care if you're into bondage and sadomasochism or any of that. If that's your get down, that's your get down, right? If the person that you're with is into it, God bless you, have a good time. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but what I'm into probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense to them. But if the person says, hey, please stop, and you continue to do it, there is a deal on one of these forums, and this one actually got onto X at one point, where a girl said, I had to bite him to get him to stop hurting me. She also said that allegedly, this started when she was 16 and went on until she was about 21. But when she got into her 20s, he wanted to continually have her tell him that during the sex that she would say things like, I'm 15, because apparently this flipped his switch. There have been modeling agencies that are trying to keep him away from the models, because this is a guy who very much collects phone numbers and likes to text people. And some of these have some backup to him. He met a girl outside of a club and went up to her, grabbed her by the arm, said, I'm Jared Leto, tried to get her phone number, and then sent her some really creepy stuff via the telephone. And her mom happened to listen to some of this because she was good and freaked out. So she let her mom listen to some of this. All of this stuff starts to stack up, and you say, well, you know what? They're allegations until they're proven. And I absolutely agree with that. It's like we were talking about the other day. Until this stuff is proven, maybe it shouldn't destroy your reputation. But it doesn't seem to even stick. This guy's kind of Teflon. Now, this new article that came out with 9 accusers, I have a feeling we're going to see this guy's career take a nosedive. I'm not sure whether or not that's going to affect his rock career. I don't even know if he's still doing it. But this guy really comes off as a creep. Now, a lot of these are allegations. But when people put their names to them. And even some of the stuff that isn't going to get him in trouble, taking Claire Danes to a club when she was 14. How the hell do you get a 14-year-old into a club? Well, the answer to that is you got to be from Hollywood, right? Because if a guy in his 20s tries to take a 14-year-old to a club, he's going to prison, right? That's going to get you arrested. That is contributing to the delinquency of a minor. You ever heard of that charge? By the way, she doesn't have to be drinking in there for that. But when you expose people to that kind of an environment, you are contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Creepy. Absolutely creepy. Now, one of his very close friends is a fashion model, a fashion photographer by the name of Terry Richardson. Do me a favor and put a deuce in the chat if you've ever heard of Terry Richardson. He has been blacklisted by almost every major magazine and brand back in 2027 amid the Me Too movement. In 2018, the New York Police Department investigated him, though no charges have been filed. Recent developments include 2 2023 lawsuits under New York's Adult Survivors Act. And in 2025, he resurfaced with work in Arena Home magazine despite allegations. Allegations span coercion, non-consensual acts, publishing photos without permission, often described as an open secret in fashion, that this guy is an absolute creep. Now, I don't do 3.5-hour shows, but if I wanted to tell you all of the people that have accused this dude of something, it would literally take me the rest of the night. But we'll just do some highlights. Lascula Cohen. During a Vogue shoot, Richardson allegedly asked Cohen to undress completely and pretend to perform oral sex on one of his friends who was naked, while he was also naked. The photographer, because what photographer doesn't get naked when he takes your pictures? She walked off the set feeling like a prostitute and vowed never to work with him again. In 2003, Karen Bernstein. Bernstein alleged Richardson forced her to perform oral sex during a purported photo shoot, which was photographed without her consent or release form. Photos were later used in an exhibit and book. She filed a lawsuit in 2023 reiterating these claims. 2004, Minerva Portillo. She arrived in a robe for a shoot. She was given a drink that made her dizzy, then groped and forced to perform oral sex while an employee photographed. The next day, similar acts occurred. Photos were exhibited and published without consent, despite a release she signed while disoriented. Language barriers also were noted. She filed a lawsuit as well in 2023. 2005, I could do this for 4 hours. 2005, Frank Speedy LaPera, at age 17, LaPera alleged a test session at Richardson's house where he was urged to remove all his clothes without a release. Photos published in Terry World in 2004, sued for invasion of privacy, settled out of court. 2007, Coco Roca, a French Vogue shoot involved graphic imagery. Spitting milk, Roca stated she felt uncomfortable and would never work with him again. Lindsay Jones. Jones alleged Richardson attempted to force his penis into her eye socket before ejaculating into her mouth, because this kind of crap happens at photo shoots all the time, right? After all of this broke and the world called this guy a dirtbag, Leto went on a radio show where someone asked him about him and they were giggling about this. The guy said, well, he's kind of into things that a lot of dudes are probably into, but we probably wouldn't want to say it out loud. Jared Leto's response, yeah, I think the two of us probably do have an awful lot in common. He's a pretty interesting guy. Cancel his ass for that. If that's all he said, there are still pictures of him walking around with this guy long after all of the allegations had come out. But we're not done. At age 19, sent a check. Check alleged Richardson got naked. His assistant asked her to grab and squeeze his penis hard for photos. She described it as non-consensual and humiliating. 2010, Diana Agron, in a GQ shoot with Glee co-stars, regretted the racy clothing while males were dressed, feeling coerced into sexualized poses in spite of her begging him not to do it. Jamie Peck alleged Richardson asked to make tea from her tampon, encouraged news photos, pressed her into a hand job saying, if you make me come, you get an A. An assistant provided a towel afterwards. He's nothing if not a gentleman, right? And this will get demonetized. I don't care. This is Jared Leto's homeboy, right? So there were people who knew who Jeffrey Epstein was. But after the allegations of Epstein, people said, I'm not talking to this dude ever again. These allegations, look at the years we're talking about, right? These are long before any of this stuff. You know, Leto's still this guy's best friend. Leto, by the way, posed naked for him as well. Scout Willis, that would be the daughter of Bruce Willis. At age 21, Willis alleged on Twitter that Richardson tried to finger her, but she refused. She allowed topless photos in a bathroom. Anonymous via Jezebel, multiple women shared stories of predatory behavior, calling it an industry open secret. In 2013, Miley Cyrus, after directing her Wrecking Ball video, Richardson posted racy photos. Cyrus later regretted the sexual direction. It's not sexual direction. While deep diving this, I literally came across images of them having sex. He had sex with this girl, including probably a way you're not having sex. Fill in the blanks on that. All of it videoed. This is a sick bastard who takes his clothes off before he shoots people, right? Shoots people, right? With cameras. This guy is an absolute bona fide predator. And as Jared Leto said, yeah, we got a lot in common. He's a very interesting guy. After all, if he had said this in 2005, that would be creepy. But he said this after the entire world blackballed this guy. And by all accounts, he's hiding right now. Like, this guy is nowhere to be seen. He's not doing a whole lot of work. Charlotte Waters, at age 19, Waters alleged Richardson directed her to perform oral sex, aggressively kissed her, straddled her, and ejaculated on her face while his assistant photographed. She quit nude modeling permanently after that. Zara Ziff, at age 19, Ziff alleged being pressured to pose topless during a meeting. Emma Appleton alleged Facebook message offering him a Vogue shoot for sex. Cole Sprouse called Richardson a public deviant on Twitter. Hashtag no more Terry has trended all over modeling. This is an extension of all of the crap that we talk about with Hollyweird, right? This is just really nasty. And for this guy to still be called your close friend and you got a lot in common with him, Jared Leto should be canceled. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. This dude ought to be canceled, if for no other reason than his friendship with Terry Richardson. This is good enough, in my humble opinion. And first of all, how in the name of God does GQ magazine or Vogue magazine or any of these hire a guy you know is going to get naked before he takes pictures? And if you get a look at this creep, I mean, he's not a leading man. This isn't the kind of guy that, this is the guy that did this stuff because he wouldn't be having access to these kind of people if he wasn't a bona fide predator in this kind of occupation. My question is, how the hell does Kevin Spacey get canceled, right? Thrown off shows, never going to work with him ever again. But Disney says, let's give Jared Leto the role in the new Tron film, right? These allegations aren't new. These allegations have been going on for a really long time with Jared Leto. What is it about Hollywood that there are certain people that don't get any crap? And it's interesting, in my humble opinion, it's super interesting that none of these allegations got any traction at all until 4 or 5 movies in a row flopped. Hollywood protects moneymakers. This is absolutely disgusting, but it's a fact. When his films were killing it, he texts some young girls. He whips his dick out occasionally in public, right? Yeah, he's had some girls at his island that have made some accusations. He's a little rough with women. He likes tying girls up, right? Come on. It's just, it's a preference thing. It's like 50 Shades of Grey. Come on, don't give him crap. But when he starts making $175 million movies that only gross $130 million, which means they got their butt kicked because they need to make about $300 million before it's a profit. So when these things start happening, all of a sudden, now the articles are getting written. Now the people are coming out. Now they're looking at maybe canceling this dude. Now, I'm of the firm belief that if these stories are true, and there's a lot of them. Now, I'm the first to admit that just because someone says something happened, it doesn't admit it's true, right? That doesn't mean it's true. But Claire Danes going on Howard Stern and saying he took me to a club when I was 14, right? He got me into my first club. I was 14. And Robin says, do you think that's appropriate? And she went, no, it's not. She couldn't kiss him on the set, on the lips, because she was underage. So it called for kissing his face. And allegedly, she said, I don't even understand what that means. And Jared Leto's response was, we'll work on it and I'll show you how to do it. Is there no one on the set protecting a 14-year-old girl from having an adult suck on the guy's face? I mean, dare I say it's Disney? I'm a little bummed out about the Disney thing. I really am, because I grew up in a day and age where Disney meant something different than it means now, right? I'm an Alice in Wonderland fan. Disney is creepy as hell. And the fact that they would take a shot at this guy, this isn't a secret. This is one of those things that's out in the open. And certainly his best friend, right? By the way, they did a music video for this crappy band or whatever, great band, whatever, right? His band. They did a music video where Terry Richardson was the director and the producer of the video. MTV wouldn't put it on because there was so much bondage and sadomasochism in it that they said it was porn. It wasn't a video. Shocker, right? Didn't see that one coming. Do you think it's because Kevin Spacey's situation involved males and not females? I don't have a friggin' clue. I really don't. But I think that we get to a point where we have to start saying, and I'll catch so much shit for this, but I'm not going to read the emails anyway. I think that there are people that sell their souls. I think that there are people that go to Hollywood and they're sucking off whoever they need to suck off, and I'm not being funny, that they're getting sodomized by whoever they need to get sodomized by. And those powerful, sick bastards that run Hollywood will protect the toys, right? There are people who get absolutely catapulted to stardom at a rate that doesn't make sense. And I'll say it's not going to make anybody happy, but I don't give a crap. Kevin Hart comes out and talks about all of the sold out shows that he used to do. Nobody has ever seen the guy. Now he does sold out shows, but he talked about how all of his stuff was on the East Coast, right? All of his stuff was, he showed up in Hollywood and got one $10 million film after another. He was instantly the biggest thing on planet Earth. And most comedians go, how the hell does that happen? Right? How does that happen? You start questioning how some of these people's rise to fame is just as fast and unbelievable as it is. And I'm not trying to be a dick, but the guy's 5'2", right? Not exactly normally considered Hollywood, leading man kind of material. But instantly, this guy's the biggest thing out there. Now, he appeared in a dress after saying in an interview, they called him on it. They said, you know what? Chappelle did an interview where he said, if you're a black man and you're going to make it in Hollywood, they're going to tell you that you have to wear a dress. They call it a humiliation ritual. And they forced black stars to do it. And Chappelle went, I'm not putting a dress on. Doesn't make sense for the movie or for the scene. I'm not doing it. Not putting a dress on. Kevin Hart gets asked about that in an interview, and he goes, yeah, you know what? If a person doesn't want to do it, they're not going to do it. And you ain't going to see me in a dress. Took him about 2 months. And he was playing the first black female pope or something along those lines. Can't remember exactly what it was. But there he was, standing out there in a dress, looking hella uncomfortable. You can't convince me that this isn't a cult. You can't convince me that Hollywood and the entertainment and the modeling and all of it, the music, that this isn't a cult of celebrity where you literally sell your soul. Now, I don't mean Satan shows up and pulls out a piece of paper, although, you know what? Wouldn't doubt that either. But you're certainly sitting down with a group of people that are doing some really dark and disgusting things. And it doesn't make sense any other way. How did this guy dodge the Me Too movement? Right? They've been talking about Jared Leto being a creep since before Me Too. And there are people in the Me Too movement that just got decimated, right? That just got absolutely decimated. Comedians who got destroyed because allegedly they pulled out their junk to somebody. Well, his accusations are considerably uglier than that. But is he just part of the cool kid club? Is he just one of those guys that they're going to protect? Because it starts, the story to me isn't as much about this guy's a creep, because he's a creep. Whether or not he gets prosecuted or anything else, this guy's a creep. The question becomes, why do some creeps get their careers destroyed instantly? And then there are guys who don't. And it makes you wonder if maybe Kevin Spacey was just a really good actor. Maybe the guy got parts because he was a great West Coast Fancy Nancy, glad you're here. Maybe he was a great actor, but maybe he wasn't going to do that I'll do whatever you want deal. You want to humiliate me? I need to get naked and let you pull a train on me. And I'm not saying this for shock effect, right? When the Diddy stories came out, true or not true, right? This has been going on since Hollywood started. Now, casting couches are one thing, but if it's elevated to a level where you're going to have to, you're going to have to punch your ticket. And it's funny how many people come out and say, I was offered $50 million. That number keeps coming back up. And I talked about this in shows in the past, but Chappelle turned down $50 million. And he didn't just turn it down. He went to Africa. He got out of the United States, freaked the hell out after they offered him $50 million for the next year of the Chappelle show. $50 million 1 year. He turned it down. And people have said, who turns down? He obviously had a great time filming Chappelle show. The writers were some of his best friends. Why would you turn down $50 million? Because maybe it came with some strings attached that cat wasn't willing to have anything to do with. And his interview on Oprah literally made it sound that way. This has been alluded to by so many different people. Add up how much money that Kevin Hart got in film roles in the first 2 years he was in Hollywood. This $50 million number just keeps coming back up and coming back up. And it sounds crazy, right? Sounds like a conspiracy theory. Sounds like I should have a tinfoil hat on, yeah? I mean, it does, doesn't it? But how is it that somebody like Jared Leto, 9 women, have accused this dude openly, right, of doing things with them when they were underage? It is one of those things that everyone talks about. There have been jokes. There's a platform that's no longer around. It was called Periscope. And a guy went on at 3 o'clock in the morning on Periscope who knows him and just decimated him, right? Did a live feed where all he did was talk about how nasty this dude was and how he likes him really, really young. Now, he took it down the next day and he came out and said, I apologize. I took Ambien. Okay. I'm not going to lie to you. Ambien's a mother of a drug, right? There's a lot of people that have done some really crazy shit on Ambien. It's really an odd thing, right? It's an odd drug that makes people do weird stuff. However, a couple of years later, somebody was tweeting and they said, this guy, he goes after every 18-year-old model on planet Earth and he tries to text them online. And this guy's response on a tweet was, so online he likes him at 18? Now, you don't have to read between the lines to realize that what he meant was, I think maybe he likes him a little bit younger in real life. I'm a big Chappelle fan too. Didn't Cat Williams say he was offered $50 million also and turned it down? Yeah, he did. And Kevin Hart on a talk show said, went like this, like, don't talk about that. They were joking about basically having to sell your soul. They were joking about the club that they come to talk to you. And someone said, it's this crazy talk where supposedly they come out to you. You've heard all this stuff. And he went, we'll talk about that. Now, could he be being funny? He could have been. But he didn't go for the punch. He didn't go for the punchline where he went, just kidding. No, he just did this crap. And the number of people that have come out and said, I have been approached by people that said, you want this? This is what we want from you. And there are people that plain disappear. Then there are rock bands that you look at and you go, man, what a great band. How did that band not propel itself to just unbelievable stardom? The band Squeeze sold a hell of a lot of records, toured and did fantastic. And right after the album 45s and Under came out, they were on top of the world. And the lead singer did an interview right afterwards. And they said, what's the next step? You're going to be selling out stadiums. What are you doing for the next album? And he said, I'd be content to just play in bars or whatever. I don't think that big rock star thing is for me. He didn't quit music. They kept making records. But it makes you start to wonder if you got to literally go, all right, I'll do it. Right? You want me to go into a room where 6 of you are going to do really terrible things to me and film it? If it's $50 million and it's everything I ever dreamed of, maybe I'll do it. And I know it sounds insane, but I want someone to explain to me. And here's the thing. I'm not going to bust any of your chops. So if you can come up with a reason why this guy continues to make films and continues to make money when they're flops, he's not returning money to Hollywood. Now, look at other actors. You deliver 2 bad films in a row, you're gone. Who's going to risk $175 million on a guy whose last 3 films didn't make any money? or whose last 4 films didn't make any money, especially if they cast you to play the Joker and you were going to be the end all and be all, and you could only manage 9 minutes of your acting role not getting cut and put on the editing room floor. 9 minutes. And what did you do to earn that? You sent used condoms with spunk in them to all of your actors and actresses. You had dead pigs delivered to people's dressing rooms, right? Will Smith was freaked out by the stuff that he did on that cast. And that's Will freaking Smith, right? By the way, I got a show coming up on Will Smith. Holy crap. If you remember back in the day when we talked about Will Smith, and Brother Bilal, very good friend of his, said he walked in on Dwayne, right, the guy from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, drilling him in the backside, walked into a dressing room on it. And his wife, absolutely, it was the Kelly Clarkson show. Thank you. Yes, I saw him on a show with Kelly Clarkson, told her to hush up about it. Kelly Clarkson was one of the people that brought it up and said, you know, that in Hollywood, you got to do this, that. He went, shh, it's not safe. Not safe to talk about. Now, you sure as hell could be joking about that, but it didn't look like one. You can look it up. Thank you, Rocket Queen. That actor has always made my spirit uncomfortable. I'll tell you something. I'm uncomfortable by everything about him. I mean, how the hell do you survive sending dead pigs to co-stars, sending used condoms and anal beads, right? And then bragging about it on the red carpet. You brag about it on the red carpet, and then when pressed about it later in a real interview, he went, oh, you know what? He said, people blow all this stuff out of proportion, and then if I stand in Times Square naked and say it's not the truth, no one's going to believe me, so I didn't bother commenting about it. Your dumbass started those rumors. What, does he think these are going to go away? It's like Jesse Smollett, right? Just come back out, wait a year, come back out, say it never happened, and everyone will believe you. I'm not believing it. I'm not believing it at all. In fact, I'm thoroughly creeped out by Jared Leto. I'm creeped the hell out by Jared Leto. And I'm curious to know how in hell this doesn't get a man canceled. Somebody want to help me with this? For real. The only thing, like I asked 5 AI models, why do you think this might be? They said white privilege. Right? It was one of the only answers that came back with, white privilege. I mean, think of how many people were canceled during the Me Too movement who were white. Absolutely tons of them. Right? Even his perverted best friend photographer. No one will work with the guy anymore, except apparently Jared Leto. Right? Because they got a lot in common. I'm not saying that he did. I'm not saying that he did. I can't think of any other reason. Now you could say, well, Hollywood protects people to make them a lot of money. He's not making anybody any money. He's not. I mean, there were some films he did that were fantastic, right? The Dallas Buyers Club, off the hook. Off the hook. Requiem for a Dream made money because it didn't have a big budget. Nothing exploded, right? There weren't car chases. There weren't a bunch of scene changes. That was a film that could be made with a very small budget, and a lot of people saw it. Jane Aldridge says, I wish I could, but not white privilege. They're in a club we never want to be a part of. You know what? I agree with that, but do you know how many people want to be in that club? Do you know how many people that would happily sell their soul for $50 million and fame? We live in a world today where people think fame is fantastic. You should get just a small dose of it, right? Just a teeny dose of it and see how cool it is. I can't imagine it on the scale that these people have. However, they also have professionals that do things like astroturfing. You know what this is? Astroturfing is where you get literally tens of thousands of bots to bury whatever happens. Give you a great example. My name is Brett Miller by birth. Most people know this. I've never hid it. From the very first show, I've never tried to say that I was born Tommy Scogle. But that was my birth name. It's also the name of one of Britney Spears had a manager named Brett Miller, only that one was a woman. Britney and Brett got into a fight. And then they made up and then at one point the fight got physical. If you typed my name in, you used to get bank robbery and all kinds of crap, right? But then that Brett Miller story popped up. And now it would take you 6 months to find my story because there's a gazillion stories on a different person with the same name. But if you got a big ad campaign that works for you, they can do the same thing. They can astroturf the entire landscape online and bury a story so far down that you got to have somebody who's really into it, right? To take the time to actually find out what they're looking for. He has ties we do not want to know about. What we already know is bad enough, right? You're absolutely right. And so is West Coast Fancy Nancy. It's gross. It's also temporary. It's not worth the price. Get a look at Madonna, right? Look at what that woman has done to herself. She literally looks like a completely different human being. Can't just age. She's trying to get back to what she looked like in 1986 when she was singing like a virgin. Didn't really work. And you want a little perspective? Go look up girls just what? No, Cyndi Lauper. Cyndi Lauper has a concert that just got posted to YouTube. I believe the concert's called At Last. Get a look at what she looks like. Have I heard about the conspiracy theory? Britney Spears didn't get in that one car crash. There are so many conspiracy theories about Britney Spears, and I'll tell you something. When you start looking into them, you find a lot of stuff that isn't conspiracy. That just isn't. Like the Kris Jenner being really tied up in. Anytime somebody out there has a conservatorship, the person who usually handles that is in business with Kris Jenner running a church. You think Kris Jenner runs a legitimate church? I'm not trying to be a dickhead, but you couldn't sell me that. You just couldn't, right? You could not. And you look at Kris Jenner on a runway, that woman's got to be spending $50 million a year to look like her daughters, because she's at an age where nobody can look like that unless you're spending everything you're making to have them chisel your face into something that doesn't look like its age. It's creepy. I'm sorry. It's creepy as hell. I may be the only person that's going to say it out loud, but I think there's something beautiful about watching someone age, right? Particularly women. There is something classy and gorgeous about watching. I'm telling you, go look at Cyndi Lauper. She's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. But Roseanne Barr, if I had said, I saw a great meme that said, if somebody had told you in the 1980s that Roseanne Barr was going to be beautiful and that Madonna was going to be ugly, would you have believed it? Right? Look at Roseanne Barr and compare her to Madonna these days. What a world we live in. Yeah, I remember Cyndi Lauper, her song Time After Time. Though obviously think Girls Just Want to Have Fun was pretty much the best one. It's probably the most popular one. Time After Time was amazing. And you know what? She Bop. If you made that in the days of the internet, it never would have got put on the radio. That song's about a girl playing with herself. Listen to the words of She Bop. It's one of those things that in this day and age, people would have instantly known because the internet would have told all of the parents. But girls crank that around the house, and if you aren't listening to the words of that song's about a girl playing with herself. But it was still a hit. It was a big one. I love Cyndi Lauper. She was like the anti-Madonna. When we were kids, right, there was that Madonna craze, and then there was Cyndi Lauper, who was just the anti-Madonna. Like, she didn't much buy into any of it, and she was so unusual. I believe that was the name of the album, wasn't it? But I'm a fan. Greatest Bumblebee Dude. Good to see you. Glad that you are here. I'm a little creeped out by everything Hollywood, and I kind of took a step back, right, because of the sensationalism that was surrounding it. But there are some people that really need to be talked about, right? There are some things that really need to be talked about. Jared Leto's story needs to get out because the people that don't want it out are controlling a part of our culture that should never, ever be touched. Hello, Angie Mo. If you're a creep, right? And everybody makes mistakes, right? CK, what's his last name? Come on, somebody help me. The comedian, Louis CK. Louis CK got canceled during cancel culture, right? He got canceled. He pulled his junk out in front of some women. He didn't assault anybody physically, but he absolutely assaulted them by pulling out his junk and starting to play with it. And he was canceled. He's coming back. You know why he's coming back? Because Louis C.K. took responsibility and said, this is the worst time of my life, and everything that they said was true. Wow. I'm sorry, what? I'm telling you, people love a redemption arc, and Louis C.K. is funny as hell, man. Whether you like him or you hate him for what he did, the guy had an incredible career writing. He was a very, very funny guy. And he's had the balls to go on some big shows. He went on with Rogan. Imagine walking on and doing a show like that after the world hears that you masturbated in front of 2 or 3 actresses. That's hard. Cindy is beautiful. And yes, She Bop really is about that, right? You see him every night in tight blue jeans on the pages of a new boy magazine. And there's a line in there about if she keeps doing it, she's going to go blind. I promise you that that's what that song is about. Audrey in Denver says, we finally got snow. Oh, how I wish I was there to be in the snow with you. I can't back that up. I can't back that up at all. We do love a good comeback story, right? You know why? Because everyone on earth has made mistakes. But if the allegations that are being made against Jared Leto are true, this is a guy that has a God complex. This is not a guy that's making mistakes. He is a guy that literally has been forcing people to do painful sexual things for a long time, and they're usually not old enough to do it. That's the allegation. Allegedly. That's what a small army of people have alleged in one place or another. Can you check into Ezra Miller? I am doing an Ezra Miller show this week. I've been deep diving Ezra Miller for a while. Kind of got fascinated when I found out that one of the places he was doing some of this really nasty stuff was in Vermont. And I've got a long history with the state of Vermont. I loved it. So I have been deep diving Ezra Miller currently. He was in The Flash and other movies. I think he could be even worse than Jared Leto. Yeah, but he doesn't seem to be protected the same way. Ezra Miller's stuff is pretty foul, but his career is all but over. Darling Nikki. Knew a girl named Nikki. I guess you could kind of say that she was a sex fiend. That one. Met her in a hotel lobby. Masturbating to a magazine. Yeah, Prince was always colorful, right? But that lyric was in your face, right? Within the first couple of seconds of that song, you kind of knew what was up. She Bop got away with it. Like She Bop got away with it. I remember them playing that at basketball games when I was a kid. Like at halftime, they were cranking that. And maybe I was the only one listening to lyrics, but I remember looking around going, oh, man, right? Parents doing this one. I'm like, Mom does not know what this song is about. But yeah, the Prince definitely pushed the envelope. But, you know, Prince was basically brought up in around strippers. It was a big thing, and he had a very colorful past. Oh man, it makes you want to be in bed. I love snow, I really do. I just couldn't possibly live in it again. But I made a living skiing. You know, I probably spent more time outside playing in snow than anybody listening to me. I promise you that. I spent a lot of time outside. The spin doctors are just as bad as the offenders. They make it so that the guilty don't have to face the consequences. They're worse. I promise you they're worse. Because they're not spinning this because they like him. They're not spinning this because they don't believe the people that have accused him. They're spinning this because this is a machine that allows people who are profitable or people that sold their soul or people that will do whatever they want them to do to get away with anything. Well, I agree with you. I mean, none of this is stuff that people should be getting involved in. And I happen to be a Christian, but even if you have no belief at all, this stuff is just wrong in every single aspect of it, right? This is absolutely just the worst. Oh, I love the song "Rapture" was one of the first rap songs of a sort to come out. Although some of the stuff from Sugar Hill Gang and some of the stuff from Grandmaster Flash might have predated it. But West Coast Fancy Nancy says She Bop came out when I was in high school. It was a few years later I understood the song. Well, it came out when I was in high school too. And I will not tell you that I figured it out originally, but I watched a girl singing it. I'm not kidding you. And for me, I learned differently, right? So listening to something, I'll memorize the words instantly, but watching somebody other than her sing it, like literally like watching her lips and watching her sing it, I was like, wait a second. Did she just say she's going to go blind? Because that was a big joke back in the day that, you know, rubbing one out eventually would make you go blind. In fact, it was one of the first jokes I ever heard. It was a guy whose older brother told him that, you know, you could do this, but the fifth time you do it, you're going to go blind. And the comedian said, and it scared the hell out of me. He's like, it really did. It was later that night. But yeah, it definitely is one of those. I'm uncomfortable with all of this. I am. I'm not as uncomfortable with the fact that people do this. And what I mean by that is I expect this. If you're a rock star and you go around the world and people literally stand and scream your name and they're paying $600 to sit down and talk to you for 20 minutes, or they're paying 6,000, all right, here we go. Or they're paying 6,000 to hang out on an island with you, those kind of people are going to go for the lowest common denominator. They want to have sex, and there are women that they view as somebody allowed, that they just expect that these women are there for their entertainment. I think that's something that's been going on with groupies in rock and roll forever. What I'm disturbed by is that once this becomes common knowledge, for instance, Red Hot Chili Peppers, the lead singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, there is nobody on earth, right, in the industry that doesn't know that that guy has been with enough underage girls to never get out of prison, ever. Ione Skye, big name in back in the 80s as an actress, and she was not, I don't know if she was old enough to have a learner's permit when this guy was sleeping with her. And this has been going on for a long time. And it is just, these secrets are allowed. How is that guy free? Because I promise you, if he was a school teacher, or if he was a gym teacher, or if he was anything else, he worked at a hospital, he worked at a shipyard, right? Anything else, he's in prison. Wait, are you saying She-Bop is about something other than dancing? Audra in Denver, don't do it now because I'll be offended. But when this show is over, just pull up Cyndi Lauper and get the lyrics. You can listen to the song again because that's always fun. Read the words. Tell me what that song's about. That's just it's just kind of how it goes. But yeah, it's absolutely about something else. It's about playing with yourself. I promise you, that's exactly what it's about. Yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm going to be doing a show on the Red Hot Chili Peppers because once again, this is something that is so pervasive and so allowed, right? That, well, if they make money, right? If they keep cranking out money, then we have a problem, right? We can't let these people get caught. I'm a Led Zeppelin fan, right? I'm a huge Led Zeppelin fan. Jimmy Page had a girl that wasn't old enough to drive that used to go on tour with him, and he was careful as hell. She does interviews to this day. She's now a grown woman, and she jokes about it. She laughs. She said, no, we had a relationship. It wasn't like that. You can't have a relationship at 15, not with an adult. But he wouldn't let her out of the hotel room. It's not like kidnapping her, but he would say to her, whatever you do, don't leave the hotel room, because if we're seen together, this is going to be trouble. And I love Zeppelin, right? But rock stars feel a certain sense of entitlement that they can do whatever the hell they want. Actors feel a certain entitlement. Jared Leto is both, right? And there have been so many. Yeah, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Wendy. I'm going to do a show on it. It's going to bum you out because it's not one case. You know, people make mistakes. Maybe he did it once. He didn't do it once. These are people that do this on the regular. And the people that protect them are the scum of the earth, right? The people that protect them are worse than they are, right? You know, you got a weird predilection or whatever, that does make you evil. But assuming that these people aren't like them and they got a wife and kids at home, but they're like, I got to protect them. David Geffen used to famously follow around bands like when Guns N' Roses was the lead act. He just walked around from town to town writing one thing after another, right? One check after another to make up for whatever damage they did the night before. Because you can't let a cash cow like that go away, right? Think of the protection. Now, we'll be touching on this on an upcoming show as well, but you do realize that they insure these people. So let's say you're Whitney Houston and your voice is kind of gone, right? And your teeth are gone from smoking crack. You know, when they found Whitney, she had half spit out her false teeth. Whitney was one of the most beautiful women that ever lived, but she destroyed herself with drugs. It gets to a point where you go, well, that person's worth a hell of a lot more dead than they are alive. The insurance policy on her, she's got 3 more albums that she's got to deliver. The insurance policy on these people are massive. So if she's found drowned in this much water, right? I'm not saying she was murdered, but I'm saying she was definitely probably worth more dead than alive. And this happens with a lot of people, right? What is Michael Jackson's music catalog worth? And it's not like, hello, Roberta. It's not like he was cranking out albums at the end of his life. But what do you think he was worth dead versus alive? They insure these people with massive insurance policies because if this is your stock and trade, if this is your number one moneymaker, you're going to insure them. Jerry Lee Lewis married his 13-year-old distant cousin, and it destroyed his career. Absolutely destroyed his career. It really did. Killer was on top of the world, but he married his cousin. Unapologetically, he married his cousin, and it destroyed his career. In this day and age, they'd have covered for him. They would have. You know, times are very different, and it's disturbing as hell. The fact that I say Red Hot Chili Peppers and the number of people that go, I never heard about any of that. Right? I never heard about it. Why didn't we hear about it? You sure as crap would have heard about Ione Skye, who literally, I mean, that girl was one of the hottest actresses on earth, especially in the genre of young girls back in the 80s. And she was dating a grown man. If she had been dating a guy that worked at a sawmill, he'd be in prison. I promise you he would. But no harm, no foul, right? Because he's a rock star. Yeah, my heart was broken over Whitney, but my heart was broken over Whitney long before she died. Watching her sort of circle the drain, right? Watching her inability to quit crack. Crack's a hell of a drug, man. And I blame Bobby Brown. I always will. But she was just, if you go back and watch the video to I Want to Dance with Somebody, just the beauty that girl exuded. And I don't mean that in the sexual sense of the word. I mean the getting up every morning and choosing to be beautiful. She was just the happiest. It was like she had a great voice. Very few people had pipes like Whitney, right? Listening to her sing I Will Always Love You. That girl had unbelievable talent. There are people that get into Hollywood and they get auto-tuned and they get all of that. But she had unbelievable talent. And when you watch her singing and dancing in that video with a huge smile on her face, yeah, Jared Leto. But to watch her destroy her life on drugs was really hard. So when the death came, I hate to sound like a dick, but I wasn't shocked. Jared Leto has been accused recently in an article by 9 women who accuse him of being abusive, and most of them were underage when this happened. Squirrel Nut Zipper be a good cat. And most of them were underage when this happened. Also, as I highlighted, he did some really creepy crap, right? When he was playing the Joker, he was doing the method acting thing where he was going to act like the Joker. So he delivered to the actors and actresses in there by big dudes who would deliver the stuff. Things like used condoms, anal beads, Playboy magazines with the centerfolds stuck together with, one would assume, semen, or at least that's what they were trying to but used condoms, anal beads? How about dead pigs, live rats? This guy's a psychopath. Right? He has a band called 30 Seconds to Mars. Every year they have this little retreat they do on an island that they call Mars Island. And he very much acts like a messiah there. He does meditations with these people, and before everyone, he grows the beard out, wears long flowing white robes. Google this stuff. You can see all of the images. I refuse to put one of those images up. The guy makes me sick. Literally. I'm struggling really hard on the Leto thing. But the reason I'm doing this show, yes, she was pure joy when she started. Kevin Costner is still heartbroken over Whitney, said she was the only woman he ever truly loved. You know what? I can believe that. Do you ever hear the people who claim Whitney Houston knew her way around before Bobby Brown? I have. I absolutely have. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But what I can tell you is this. Having spent a long time as a junkie, it's really easy to go to hell in a handbasket, right? But if you have a partner that's also doing drugs with you, you will accelerate the both of you to hell a hell of a lot faster. And sadly, I've been the person that was hanging out with the person who had a drug habit, and they fueled me. And I've been the person that fueled other people's drug habits more often than I care to admit. Al Franken resigned from the Senate for less. Rocket Queen is a great point, and it's a stone cold fact, right? Jared thinks he's way cooler than he is, says Laura Lewin. You know what? Nailed it. He doesn't just think he's cool. I don't know. I'm not going to diagnose this dude, but the word narcissist jumps off the freaking page at you. I'm not a shrink, right? I don't play one on YouTube, but this guy's creepy, man. Jared Leto creeps me out big time. I think he's bisexual, right? I don't know. He was super comfortable getting naked for his artist friend who literally seems to have molested everybody. I only read about half of that list to you, folks. I only read about half of that list to you. And that's creepy enough, right? He wants to stick his penis in a girl's eye socket and then ejaculates in her mouth. And she's just there for a photo shoot. I mean, this guy makes Harvey Weinstein look like Billy Graham, right? This is a creep, a bona fide creep, and one of Jared Leto's best friends. They got a lot in common, Leto says, right? He's a very interesting guy, Leto says. I'd rather get the beads than the dead animal. Renee B, I got to agree. Renee B, I hope you got that job, by the way. Reese and I were talking. I hope you got that. Lady Gaga is the other person that did not bail on this particular photographer. Not sure what that says about her, but I've seen 30 Seconds to Mars, not impressed. I'd rather get on a rocket ship and be shot off to Mars than see anything that Jared Leto does ever again. I'm not joking. What is that, 9 months or something in a rocket and then no hope of coming back? Yeah, I'd rather trade that out than seeing Jared Leto do anything. I have gotten to a point where I believe, and you can agree or disagree, but I believe we can do something about creeps like this. Hold on. I truthfully and honestly believe we can do things. Because I did shows in the past and people would go, yeah, but there's nothing you can do about this. BS. Don't watch anything they do. And I don't care if it's a theater or I don't care if it comes up on network TV. Turn it off. Don't watch these creeps. Because once they are no longer profitable, then they will no longer be protected. Once these people, even if they sold their souls and they let guys pull trains on them or whatever the hell they did to become untouchable, once the world sort of stops caring about you, these articles, people have been talking about this with Leto forever. Why is it coming out now? Well, because his last 4 films bombed. Bombed, right? Gaga is just as creepy. I tend to agree with you. I've done some shows about other people that Gaga seems to be very close with. By the way, just for yits and giggles, put it too in the chat if you would like me to do a little bit of a deep dive to all of the rock stars who have claimed to have sold their souls to Satan. Because I'm sorry, the number of people who have said out loud, I've sold my soul to Satan. I mean, maybe it's a joke, but it does seem to be a joke that people don't drop ironically. There's a very, very odd interview with Bob Dylan where a guy said, you're going on tour again. And he goes, paying off the contract. And the guy goes, you still have contracts to tour? That isn't what he meant. And then the guy said to him, some of the songs you wrote in the very beginning were so fantastic. How do you write a song like that? And he said, no, I didn't write any of that. And the guy said, no, you were the writer. He goes, yeah, you can't write songs like that. It wasn't me. That's frightening shit to me. I'm sorry, it is. And I read the book, Hammer of the Gods, which Zeppelin came out afterwards and said, I don't believe everything you read. But in that book, they're very specific about how they sold their soul to the devil, exactly what was going to happen, and all of that trash. There's my girlfriend. She says, I wanted to discuss that on our other channel. Well, I'd be more than happy to do it on the other channel. It's more fun when you're there talking to me about it. Audra Denver says, he was pretty gross in concert about, let me back that up because things are cooking. That's what happens when a girl shows up. He was pretty gross in concert about gay sex, which I don't care about, so I don't need to share with you. You know what? I'll be really honest with you. If I go to a concert, I don't want the person on stage sharing heterosexual sex either. I'm there to listen to music, right? There's that kind of stuff gets kind of pervasive and brought into aspects of our life that I just assume not have anything to do with. I'm not busting anybody's chops. I mean, live any way you want. But I'm paying $100 to go see you sing. I don't want to see you kiss your drummer, right? Or whether she's male or female, for the record. That's not why I'm there. But that's just my humble opinion, right? That's just my humble opinion. Wendy, Reese says, love chatting with you this evening. I should find out about the job this week. I think it could be helpful. You know what? Can we get some ones for Renee B? Let's all pray she gets that gig. I'm of the firm belief that prayer does things. So let's all pray that that goes through for Renee B. She's super kind. Bob Dylan made his fame by working folk music that was 100 years old, by remaking folk music. Yeah, but he still wrote the words to like the greatest rock song ever written, right? Like a Rolling Stone. They have often called the greatest rocks. Every time Rolling Stone does the greatest, the greatest songs ever written, like a Rolling Stone is usually number one. The Zeppelin Stairway to Heaven is usually up there in the top 3 or whatever. Thought I said 2? No, I said 1, but that's all right. I think she got the idea. All right, people, I'm going to call this a night. I got some girl I got to call. But if you want me to cover something, put it in the comments section when this is over. Sympathy for the Devil is a pretty rowdy tune as well. Once upon a time, you dressed so fine. Toss the bums a dime in your prime. That's a heavy ass tune, man. That really is a heavy tune. And I mean, great junkie song for real. Heavy junkie song. Pawning rings, looking into the dealer's eyes and saying, "Do you want to make a deal?" That's a tough song to listen to. It really is. But all right, people, I'm gonna go call my girlfriend. Between now and the next time I see you, do me a favor and be kind to one another. And you know what? Seriously, if you're struggling with anything, I saw somebody earlier that said they're really disappointed in themselves for relapsing. If you're struggling with drugs or alcohol, keep coming back, right? And have the courage to say so, because we'd love to talk to you about it. Relapse can be the greatest thing that ever happened, right? The great relapse is the last relapse, because you'll never have another one. And the difference between a good relapse and a bad relapse, if you learn nothing, that's a bad relapse. If you understand exactly why it happened, that's a good relapse. If you understand it so much, right? Like they would say in Stranger in a Strange Land, if you grok that bad boy, if you understand so much that it becomes a visceral thing, then it will never happen again. And that is the best relapse of all kind, right? And everybody sober had the great relapse right before they got fully sober and never went back. So don't beat yourself up. It's part of the process. I promise you it is. Nobody gets sober without relapse. Just doesn't happen. All right, folks, I'm Tommy. I will see you on the next one. Will, thank you for the super chat. It literally does keep this thing going. All right. Appreciate you guys. I will see you on the next one. Have a great night. I'm Tommy. God bless.